Hi, Adam Taxin here in Ventura County, north of LA, or is it Ventura?
Yes, it's Ventura County,
Ventura,
north of
not
LA.
Ventura. It's what's the right way to pronounce it?
Ventura.
Ventura. Okay, I got it right. With Doris Wise, who is an activist of the type we like on our side, very energetic, and her current gig is running and founding a group called Jews Can Shoot. We have so many places we're going to go. I apologize for the lighting here. This is just like late afternoon in LA. This is typical. Like, we had such sun back on that side, and then the shadows came. Watch a Dodgers game at home, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, but what's important is what we're going to say right now.
That's right.
And the lighting will probably stabilize within a few minutes, so this would be a problem anywhere in the backyard here. So Doris, welcome. Where should we begin? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to this point, just so people can get to know you?
Sure. So I'm a child of Holocaust survivors, firstborn, and I grew up listening to my parents say, as many other survivors did, they would go like, "What can I do?" Because they felt that they couldn't do, things were out of their hands. I never heard it emphasized as, "What can I do?" I always heard, "What can I do?" So I came up with something, what can I do? And that is to, first to inform people about what happened in the Holocaust and what is happening currently that is culturally and politically similar to what happened in the 30s.
And I want to just add, because I didn't mention it before, you ran or maybe still run a group called Children of Holocaust Survivors. I met you originally through Facebook, though we met in person maybe 2 years ago or something.
So I had speakers for, monthly for 8 years, so with videos, which are available on YouTube, on Children of Jewish Holocaust Survivors YouTube channel. All fabulous people who spoke eloquently about the situation. And after about 8 years, I was repeating speakers already, and I realized, boy, if people don't know by now what's happening in the world and what we're facing, another speaker isn't going to do the trick. So about the same time, my friend Alex Kaczynski, the former chief judge of the Ninth Circuit, wrote a dissenting opinion on a gun case, which I can't think of the name right now, but in it he had a phrase, he had a section, a paragraph about noting that if few Jews could hold off so many of the SS during the Warsaw Uprising, imagine what 6 million Jews with one rifle and 100 rounds could have managed.
Yeah, I want to ask you one thing about the history.
Yes.
You often see the slogans and the shirts, or whatever, where it shows a series of dictators like Mao, Castro, not Stalin, it would have been Lenin, who all disarmed the populace. But there's a question. They put Hitler in there, but my understanding is Hitler did not disarm the entire populace. He just disarmed the Jews and I guess the other groups, but he did not disarm the early Germans. Can you just clarify that?
The history, the way I know it, also, and it's all I know is that he disarmed the Jews and also forbade them from doing anything having to do with firearms, including making munitions and
there's no question about that. It's just like people have said, well, you can't really put Hitler in there because he disarmed part of the populace, not the entire populace.
But his goal was the Jews. So
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was just saying about that, like, is it, that Hitler was it, people had said you can't really put him in the list.
Well,
the same way.
Every dictator, every tyrant whose goal was genocide of any kind started by disarming the Jews. To which I also, by the way, is an interesting thing, because whenever I mention that to anybody about resistance and stuff, people always say, well, we were starving, they starved us. I'm not belittling what people went through then, because I would never do that, but just if we take the logic from it, Hitler managed to starve people, to starve the Jews, because they could not fight back to begin with. So don't let anybody take your guns away, or you'll starve and then you'll die.
And you had made a reference to the Warsaw Ghetto. Just there may be a lot of different types of people watching this. Maybe as I check and make sure everything's going okay technically, you could start and just give a little synopsis of what happened there in 1944, I believe, right?
Right. So the Germans were taking out Jews incrementally to the camps to exterminate them, and at that point, at some point in the end, people, well, if they didn't realize it before, they realized it then, and there were a group of Jews who said that they were not going to go quietly or willingly, and they managed somehow to confiscate guns, to buy guns, to buy some ammunition, and they did manage to hold off the SS for about 30 days.
Which is longer than the entire country of France, sounds like.
Yes, and there were only a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they did manage to hold off entire battalions, or what? Actually, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah. So it inspired you to tell us about the organization.
So,
yeah.
So when I knew then that that was the only thing we could do. That was the only thing that left for us, is if we remained armed. It was too logical for me not to ignore. So I said, well, Jews are not known for being great on self-defense anymore.
Put it mildly.
Yeah, and the thing to do would be to follow the words of Jabotinsky, who encouraged Jews to be armed, and that was it.
And what's particularly impressive is that you're not doing this in, say, the large Jewish community of South Florida, where gun rights are pretty loose. You're doing this in California.
Because that's where I live, and because that's where I think we could be very effective for the rest of the country if we can actually manage to pull this off, and we are, in California of all places.
Oh, yes. I mean, California, New York, you pull that off here. Florida's no big deal after that.
Right.
What is it you're trying to accomplish besides educating the public, and what do you want them to learn from you in general before we get into specifics?
That I want people to understand the importance of the Second Amendment, what it's meant for. Mm-hmm. It's exactly meant for combating the tyrannical efforts of a government. And when the Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment in, they had in mind that citizens would be armed and would know how to defend themselves.
It wasn't about Bambi.
No, it's not about hunting.
Yeah.
No. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting.
When did you start learning to shoot? Have you been doing this since you were very young? Or?
No. I bought my first gun in 2008.
Oh, wow. So it's only been 9 years since you've been doing this.
Yeah, but wait. Then I put it away in a closet, and I picked it up again about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's when I got into it.
And you've really gotten into it.
I've really gotten
Explain
into it.
your. It's a hobby, more than a hobby for you.
Oh, it's now a way of life, actually. So I started to take some of my own lessons, and I thought, if I can do it, and I can, I'll invite other people to do it. So I didn't have a name yet. The Jews Can Shoot name came into my head with like 2 seconds of thought. Jews can shoot. Yes, they can. So
well, you don't have to tell Israelis that. They know.
Right. So I found some people, and I sent out an invitation, and I told some people, and it built itself up to where it is now. People came. They were interested. People are interested. There's absolutely no question about it. People are interested in learning to shoot. And
you get a lot of people from, I assume, Ventura County and the San Fernando Valley in particular?
When I first started it, I lived in L.A. County, and it was I mentioned it to a lot of people who were on my database for children of Jewish Holocaust survivors, which is substantial, but it's all over the world. But people were very interested. So it was local. It was L.A. People came up from San Diego, people came in from Palm Springs. Some people came down. You know, they came from all over.
And do you get some pushback? I mean, there are a lot of liberals around here, and especially, I imagine, synagogues. Like for a lot of synagogues, the biggest issues in Judaism are abortion, anti-gun, thoughts, etc.
They may be pushing back, but
doesn't affect what you do.
It doesn't affect me, and
you don't hear like snide comments.
I'm sure I get them, but I really could not care less.
What if you were to tell? If people said, "Hey, you know what? She has a point." What? Where would you want people to start? If they said, you know, maybe she has a point. I've never done anything with guns. I don't even own a gun.
First of all, it's not maybe. I do have a point.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm saying what they meant.
I know. There are all over the country. There are excellent ranges and instructors. And if people are interested, and I hope you are, go to a range. Ask to get an instruction. They rent guns, they have the targets, they have everything you need, the eyes, the ears, everything, and try it. First of all, you'll love it. It's very empowering. It's fabulous for depression, anxiety. You come away from a shooting. It's fun. There are so many articles now and videos of people who are traditionally anti-gun, people on the left, and somehow they find their way into a range, and while they still might be anti-gun after, they can't say that they didn't have a good time. You see them with a smile on their face. It's a very empowering thing, and I urge people to give it a shot.
You haven't gotten into hunting, have you?
Not outside of the market. No.
Okay, outside of the market.
You know, like go to Ralph's.
Oh, okay. All right. Something just slipped. It was in my mind that I've heard. Have you read the article? There's an article. I can't remember where it was published. It came out a few years ago, written by someone who was a Hollywood writer who had an experience during the L.A. riots, and that made
Robert Overick.
Yes. Yeah.
A Jew with a gun.
A Jew with a gun. Where did he publish that? I can't remember.
In his Seraphic
That sounds right.
Yeah.
So that's one.
I have it on my website, by the way, too.
Okay. A Jew with a Gun by Robert Averick. That's A-V-E-R-E-C-H. Okay. Gotcha. What else do you want people to know? What do you think of Trump and gun rights and what you've seen so far?
I supported Trump from the get-go. I think he's the best thing to happen to this country. He's not a politician, which is a huge point in his favor. I think that he is focused on people, on citizens. He has all the money that he needs, that he wants, so that's not a factor driving him as what happens to most politicians. I hope he stays on course and stays focused with what he promised us, especially in terms of health, the health insurance thing, the Obamacare thing, and most especially on Israel.
And speaking of which, what are your thoughts on Trump and Israel, and just Israel and the mentality of the populace there, which is familiar with guns because so many of them it's universal service?
What people don't realize is that Israel is actually very restrictive with guns. It's not at all easy for people in Israel to obtain a permit for a gun. People don't realize that. A lot of Israelis are not happy about that.
Mm-hmm. Yet they seem to have very few. It's as if the Arab Muslims have to get creative because the population is so self-defense oriented. No. I'm saying anyway. They manage even without guns. But it's just
the Arabs have guns. They have cars. They have machetes.
Oh yeah. They use other things, but they rarely. I mean, most of them are not just plain old mass shootings. And often there's an Israeli who's...
and it was also in a cafe.
Yeah, I'm saying, but just not as much as it might be. But I'm saying because Israelis are so ready to deal with self-defense, which is something you're also involved in.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to talk about your work with self-defense in general.
Okay. So I don't know what life is like in Israel when it comes... we don't live the way they live with the Arabs as their neighbors driving. So I can't speak to that. I just believe that there would be less, possibly. I'm out of turn here. But I'd like to believe that if the Arabs had some concern that they would be killed, and I know everybody thinks, oh, they want to be martyrs. No, they don't. They don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. So, I think that if they were more concerned that people were armed, if they felt that people were armed, they might not do things so
easily. And you say you do stuff with self-defense in general,
yes,
besides just going to the shooting range.
Right. So now I'm starting with a lovely friend of mine named Jennifer Kalig Silverstein, who does Krav Maga and martial arts, who was in the IDF and now lives here in the United States. And we are starting. We're starting with women's self-defense classes, and also a class for seniors, self-defense for seniors, because they are definitely a targeted demographic. So, and then we're going to build on that, so to incorporate everything, because there are situations where a gun is not, you may not have a gun, or a gun is not the right way to defend yourself. But again, the sense of learning self-defense is, to use an overused word, is incredibly empowering. And if you feel that you can defend yourself, you give off a different vibe, and you are much less likely to be a target. Plus, you have a situational awareness. You bet. They're like dogs. They can sniff it out.
Great.
And I love dogs. So.
Yeah, they're in there. And what would you tell people who have just not given thought to this about self-defense, like a message like wake up, your wake up message to people?
So I understand perfectly. We have the very good fortune to live in the United States of America, where we do have, and have had for years, for decades, a real or a false sense of being safe and secure. There is no way that anybody can think that now. So instead of worrying about it or pretending it's not happening, just go and learn some self-defense. Take some classes on how to use a firearm. It'll change your life for the better.
Any final thoughts, Doris Wise?
No. I'm also doing webinars, by the way.
Okay. Well,
okay.
Got to give people how to get in touch with you, how to go to your...
We just started doing webinars. Our first one was with Scott Kirshner. It was incredibly successful. And he wrote a book, which is available on Amazon, called Surviving Violent Encounters, which is the idea behind it is what happened, how it was dealt with in Orlando at the Pulse nightclub, in San Bernardino. Again, we can't pretend that is not going to happen just because it hasn't happened to us yet.
Right.
It was
Obama let in a lot of Muslims.
Yes, and Trump is having trouble stopping them.
Exactly.
So that was an incredibly successful webinar, which is also now available on YouTube. And our next one with Scott is going to be what to do in a riot. So I have my website is called Jews Can Shoot, and we're on Facebook, Jews Can Shoot, www.jewscanshoot.com. I have a store, an online store called the Armed Jew Marketplace, where I have hats and kippas and great keychains and mugs and aprons and everything.
Ponchos, I saw, though. They probably don't sell too well in Southern California.
We sold several when we had the great rains now.
Oh, you did? That's right. That's right.
And the idea behind that is to be proud of your Judaism and to show the world that we are not living in the shtetl anymore.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.